Hi, I'm Chike Coleman of Sound on Sight, and that's Chuck Koplinski of the Illinois Times and the News
Oh, you're
Gazette.
throwing that around now, huh?
Yes, I am. People need to know where to find our writing. And this is Real Reviews.
So what is Sound on Sight?
Sound on Sight is a Canadian publication online that has been in service since 2006, and that's the newest publication that I'm writing for. I cover TV and film.
Since when?
For Sound on Sight. Since actually last week. So
And what do you have on Sound on Sight?
right now I've been doing opinion pieces on television shows and movies like Arrow. I'm getting ready to do one on Veronica Mars and why it's relevant to things like True Detective that are on HBO. And I'm also planning to do one on the recent Need for Speed film and why video game movies could be better. Five films, that are video game based that could elevate the genre continuously if they follow the patterns correctly.
Okay.
All right, so with that said, we've got a lot to cover today. You saw Need for Speed this week.
And you didn't?
No, I didn't get a chance to go see it. You saw Need for Speed this week, which stars Aaron Paul and what's the other guy's name? Is it Dominic
Cooper?
Cooper, yes, as the villain.
And Imogen Poots or Potts or whatever her name is.
Whatever her name is.
She's cute. She doesn't
now, isn't Need for Speed comparable to the Fast and the Furious franchise? Is it better? Is it worse? Tell me.
Well, Need for Speed I liked better than almost every one of the Fast and Furious films, except for Fast 5. I think that is still the best of the Fast films and probably one of the best car films ever made. However, there is a distinction between Need for Speed and these films in the fact that the director, a guy by the name of Scott Waugh, he only directed one film before this, Act of Valor. He is a former stuntman, and he decided to do all of the stunts in Need for Speed for real, or in camera, as they say. And what I mean by that is that none of the car chases or anything are benefit from any sort of computer graphics.
No cutaways at all either, right?
So that everything you see on camera is done for real. You won't see, as he said, you won't see any car do anything in the film that it can't really do. And that really adds a certain tension, I think, to the aesthetic. I mean, even though the computer-generated effects at times can be very good, I think audiences can tell when they're watching something that's real and something that's not. And that, I think, is a big benefit to the film. The film itself is pretty silly. I mean, there's no question about the fact that it's very silly at times. Aaron Paul plays a kid by the name of Toby Marshall, who's running a garage in which they retrofit cars. And he's going under. However, the villain, as you say, played by Dominic Cooper, who's a dirty racer, and stole his girlfriend, played by Dakota Johnson, who we'll see in 50 Shades of Grey coming up. Well, if you see it, you'll see it. Offers him a job to retrofit a Mustang for $250,000. They jump at this and make a big profit, and then the Cooper character challenges him to a race with European race cars on the open road, along with a friend of his. The friend dies. Toby, played by Paul, ends up going to jail for manslaughter for a couple years for something he did not do. And when he gets out, he has to clear his name. He's released from jail in New York, and there is a big race taking place in California called the De Leon, which takes place in like 2.5 days. So he and his crew and this new girl head out cross-country to get to the race in time where the bad guy is there. He'll be racing him in the hopes to make some money and clear his name. So it's nothing but chases, cross-country and everything. The one thing that I wish they'd done more on is that the bad guy ends up putting out a bounty on him. So there are times where other people are chasing him, trying to crash Paul and capture him, prevent him from getting to the race. They only do that once, though, and I wish they'd done it a bit more. I think it would have made it a bit more interesting. And there are certain plot points where you're just going to be smacking your head like this. I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
But we don't go to these movies for intricate plotting. We go for the thrills. And the thrills and the racing stuff is very well done. I mean, there's no question. So if you are jonesing for Fast and the Furious, and we don't get that one for another 1.5 years or so, and you need something like this, Need for Speed, you could do much worse than that.
Okay. Sounds good. You interviewed Paul.
Yeah, I did. I interviewed Aaron Paul and Scott Waugh. They were in Chicago a couple weeks ago. Very nice guy. You get the impression that he is appreciating his stardom, that he knows that it's been a long, hard road for him. You know, he knows that he's fortunate, very nice, very personable, and you know, he does a lot of work for charity. He's not averse to meeting fans. I know that there's been times when he'll tweet that he's going to a movie at a certain location, and if people want to meet him there, feel free. And
Wow.
of course, he generates a big crowd when he does that. So he just seemed very down to earth, which is what you want to hear.
I know that one of the things he did for his previous work on Breaking Bad was he would put out a Twitter that if, you know, you retweet this, the next, 10 people who retweet this get a personal phone call from me to talk about whatever you want to talk about and ask a question or two.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was also video recorded on YouTube. So you can definitely tell that he really appreciates all that he's been giving.
And the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a good interview.
Well, this week I saw the first part in the newest Lars von Trier film, Nymphomaniac. I watched one volume because I wanted to kind of get my bearings for what Lars von Trier put in front of us. Now, Lars von Trier, for those of our audience who do not know him, is a director who heavily relies on, I won't call it shock. What would you call it, Chuck? It's not.
He deals with very controversial subjects in a way that where there are no taboos.
Yeah.
When he deals with the subjects, he's going to deal with it all the way. He's not going to pussyfoot around with it. He's going to look at it as bare and as open as he possibly can.
Yeah, I've thought about this for a bit, and I like to say that Lars von Trier is the one director who you will find often intimately explores the psychology of the human mind. This can be seen in films like Melancholia. I would even venture to say in Antichrist, he looked at, you know, religious symbolism and the personality of people who are connected to, well, I won't even say.
It deals with depression.
It deals with depression in a very
about.
intimate way.
Mm-hmm. And his early works like Breaking the Waves and Dancer in the Dark also deal with issues of isolationism, I think, more than anything, and being the outside of a society and trying to fit in and not finding your place to very, very fatalistic ends, unfortunately. I think you could safely say he's a very nihilistic filmmaker. But I find him very interesting because he's on the edge, and I get the sense when he's watching his films that he just doesn't care what anyone else thinks. You either like it or you don't, and here it is. And I admire that.
And it's not even that he's trying to say something important. He's just trying to get you to think about it.
I would say he's saying very important things.
I'm saying he's saying important things, but he's not trying to. He's trying to get the viewer to think. Think about what the overall effects of something like depression would feel like. Something like the idea of that sense of melancholy that Kirsten Dunst feels in Melancholia because she's being pressured into a life that she doesn't really want or agree with. I like that about him. He doesn't hold back, and what makes his films interesting.
I'm forgetting a key film, too. Go ahead and talk. I'm going to try and look
Okay.
it up.
For Nymphomaniac, this film explores the life of a nymphomaniac, which for those of you who do not
Shocking.
know, a nymphomaniac is a form of a sex addict. And so we're introduced to this woman who, when we meet her in the opening of the film, has been badly beaten up by someone, and we don't know why. A man, played by Stellan Skarsgård, finds her in an alley and nurses her back to health. In return for nursing her back to health, the man gets to hear her story about why she ended up where she was. And it's talked about through a chapter form of the relationships that this woman has had in her life, which, while it doesn't fully explain why she became so deeply invested in being a nymphomaniac, it does point to the idea that she wasn't really searching for love. She was searching to be cared for. She was searching for that affection. And we see throughout her various boyfriends and the various intimate encounters that she has how she evolves as a person. or in some ways digresses. If you look at her as she ages throughout the film, a character played by Charlotte Gainsbourg, and I really think that this film says important things about what intimacy can provide for a person, but also how intimacy can degrade a person's maturity to an infallible kind of broken degree. I really love the fact that Gainsbourg and by extension Von Trier in his directing doesn't make this film a montage of just giant sex scenes that would make the viewer uncomfortable. He takes his time in educating us about the relationships that the person is in first and then jumps into the sex, which really relaxed me entirely, I will say that, because I was worried that, oh crap, this film is going to be just one sex scene after another, and you're not going to get any sort of character growth or any sort of explanation as to who this person is. It's just going to be one scene after another, and it's really a very thought-provoking, intimate look at how a person deals with and organizes their life around the activity they so love. Chuck, you've seen other Lars von Trier films.
Let me ask you something. You seem to be intimating that this is a conscious choice on the character's part to enter into these sexual relationships, or that she loves them. Is that the case, or is she driven by this? Is she just driven to act in this way and she doesn't understand why?
She understands why, and that's part of why she's telling Stellan Skarsgård the story.
So even though she understands, she's unable to control herself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what
so
makes
it's compulsive behavior.
It's a compulsive behavior, and you learn from her early years why that compulsive behavior exists. It's not that she had a unhappy childhood or anything of that nature.
Right. It's due from some traumatic experience.
Yeah, from some traumatic experience that she was curious about. And because she was curious about it, it's like that addiction that you can't quite break. It happens once, you hate the idea of how it occurred.
You know it's bad for you, but
you can't tear yourself away.
Well, I'm very anxious to see this film, and I'm sorry I didn't see it in a timely manner for you, because it sounds as though this is a theme that can be applied to so many other different types of behavior.
That's what I thought when I was watching it.
There are so many different types of addiction, and so many. I think all of us have a certain degree of self-destructive tendencies within us, in our environment either fosters a situation that lets them loose, or our environment helps keep this at bay.
Right.
And so I think it sounds like it's a very relatable thing.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, and you've done a great job, thank you, of being vague enough to not give anything away. How does this thing end? I mean, where do you think this, because there's another 2 hours to this.
Yeah.
How is this going to progress, do you think?
They don't really give you any, actually they do, I take that back. I was going to say they don't really give you any hint at the direction it's going, but there's a story that the character tells at one point about her first love, and how she goes about that relationship and what changes in her as a result. It's basically the infancy of how the nymphomania starts.
So is it your impression that the second film is just going to continue this pattern of
more
chapters of her telling more about her life?
It continues the pattern, and I think the second volume is going to explore how that surprise and that shock of how amazing what she was doing fades as she grows older.
Now, there's some pretty big names here.
Yeah.
And the sex is quite explicit. Is there any way you can tell us who some of these names are in the first part and the roles they play without giving away too much?
I can only tell you one because I couldn't recognize any of the other actors for anything.
Okay.
The ones that are really main stars, to me, don't appear until the second half.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen them yet.
Okay.
But you have Charlotte Gainsbourg, who is apparently pretty well known. The real talking point of this picture, of course, is the one who caused the most trouble, and that's Shia LaBeouf.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're saying caused the most trouble, his character or the actor on screen,
or
both?
The actor on screen, both.
Okay.
Because he is a key part in her life.
Okay.
And Stellan Skarsgård, while good here, doesn't really get much to do.
Yeah, it seems though he's just kind of the sounding board, the excuse
He's the sounding
generate
board.
the
He's the
narrative.
sounding board, and he's also our eyes into this woman's life. He's the one
He's us.
asking the questions
that we would want to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching it. I really am, and obviously, this will not be mainstream success by any stretch.
Right. I honestly think that of the 3 Lars von Trier films that I have seen, Nymphomaniac, Antichrist, and now this one, this is the best out of the 3.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see, is it going to be entered at the Cannes Film Festival? Because I know he's been barred from Cannes.
Yeah.
But I wonder, I don't think the films have, and I wonder if they're going to put it into competition and how it might be received.
I have no idea, but I would love to see it entered because I think it's a really, really strong film.
He's a very strong filmmaker. I love him. It's neat to be challenged by movies.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't get that enough. And obviously he's more well known and his films do much better in Europe, where there's a bit different sensibility as to how to approach these things.
They aren't as blindly afraid.
And I
of
think
things
do
like this.
think it has been or is going to be at the Berlin Film Festival, which is a notch down from Cannes, but still a significant showing point for films such as this to generate some sort of press.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I know that it opens in Chicago, I think in 2 weeks.
I would love to go to Chicago to see it, because I know it's not going to be at Savoy. No
way.
Savoy won't even touch it.
I think that it opens in Chicago in 2 weeks, and then the second part opens 3 or 4 weeks after that. I think they're staggering it like that.
And I've seen both parts.
Yeah.
Or I have both parts,
Right.
I'm sorry.
It'll be interesting to see, and I think that Austin over at the Art Theater has done an exceptional job of bringing in a wide diverse of films. With this being NC-17, it'll be interesting to see if he brings this in. I know he has played NC-17 films there on a limited basis.
Blue is the warmest color this year, did he not?
He did, and I think he also played Killer Joe there, the Matthew McConaughey
He did,
film
yeah,
for a
I do
couple of
remember
days.
that.
It was very limited in what he's shown. So I hope he continues to live on the edge there and bring this in for those who'd be interested to see it, because even though, as you say, it's on direct, on pay-per-view, you can't get it there, there's something to be said again
about being in a film.
Being in a theater and that communal experience of seeing it with other people. So, come on, Austin.
Yeah. The second thing that I want to talk to the audience today about is Veronica Mars.
Oh, I can't wait for this.
Have you seen the show?
I have not seen the show, but I watched the movie last night.
Okay.
It too is on pay-per-view.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about the movie. I want to talk about the TV series because I want to have a much larger discussion with you about why this film doesn't work next week.
Oh, come on, man.
Yes, I'm actually doing it. I want to introduce our viewers to the world first. Okay, so Veronica Mars as a TV series stars Kristen Bell as a private detective who, in her junior year of high school, has her best friend, well, not has her best friend, is put in a situation where her best friend is murdered. And this causes Veronica to be in a depression for some time, but she also wants to stop at nothing to find out who killed her best friend, Lily Kane. I should also mention that in this world, pretty much everybody's rich if they work for the software, a billionaire named Jake Kane. Jake Kane has a son named Duncan, who is Lily's Lily's brother, and Duncan is equally as distraught by his sister's death as everyone else in the town of Neptune. Veronica has a father named Keith Mars, who is the sheriff of the town called Neptune. He was the sheriff until he accused Jake Kane of murdering his own daughter, and then he was forced out of office and had to get his PI license to get by. Veronica and Keith together work Mars investigations to stop criminals, do private eye missing person cases, and the like. This TV series ran from 2004 to 2007 for 3 seasons. It was a critical darling success, but it was not a rating success, and struggled each year to get the ratings to be able to continue each season. At the end of 2007, after the CW was created as a bridge between UPN and the WB, Veronica Mars was canceled on its 20th episode. then after that, this past year, there was a Kickstarter created to make a Veronica Mars movie happen. The goal was $2 million to fund the movie, and then anything after that would go to make the film extra special for those who cared about and loved it. The film made $2,000 or $2 million within the first day of its opening, and in the days following, it made another $3 million, bringing the total to $5 million. As a result of this Kickstarter, the movie was made, and as of yesterday, the film was released on demand and in movie theaters in major cities. I'm hoping it comes to Champaign, Illinois, but I do not know. That's the briefing on Veronica Mars. You saw the film, Chuck. What?
Oh, are we talking about the film? I thought that was next week.
It is next week, but I want you to give your broad impressions at least. I want you to be able to get something out.
Oh, I thought it sucked.
You thought it sucked?
Yeah, I thought it sucked. Obviously, it's a movie that's for fans of the show. Any outsiders, I think, are going to be wondering what all the fuss is about, because I certainly did. I didn't see anything exceptional going on. It played like an extended TV show, and I think it's smart to do it on pay-per-view because I don't think you're going to gain anything out of going to the movie theater to see it. Again, I came away, I guess maybe my expectations might have been too high because I know everyone says so many wonderful things about it, but it just seemed to be a standard detective show. They referred to her as Angela Lansbury at one point, and I'm like, yeah, this is about right. That's about the scale for this. This is Murder, She Wrote for a young set. I didn't see anything special about it. I didn't like the character. Mm-hmm. I thought that some of the things she did were like, she's got a boyfriend or somebody in New York. I don't know if this guy was on the show before.
He was, yeah.
Treats him horribly.
Yeah.
Treats him horribly.
So that hasn't changed. That's good to know.
What do you mean that's good to know? You haven't seen the show, the movie?
Well,
you haven't seen the movie.
I have not yet. No.
Okay.
I plan to next week because I imagine that I will dislike it as much as you do because I'm lowering my expectations. But I don't even think that's going to save me from disliking where this goes, because what I was looking for was for them to evolve the concept a bit. And while I have heard that they, tell us where everybody is in that 10-year time span that, that Veronica Mars has been off the air, I don't think that they're going to do anything new or original with it. I do want to ask you one question, though. Is the killer or the culprit obvious? Is it
no. To me, it wasn't. To people who have seen the show, it might be. But to me, coming in fresh, it wasn't. It does seem to be based on the mythology of the show, though. Maybe people, like I say, who have a history with the show will be able to see things I did not. And I certainly didn't catch any chemistry at all between Veronica and this Logan guy. This Logan guy seems like a big drip. and I'm like, really? I mean, I like the guy in New York better than this guy.
I'll be honest with you, Logan is a big drip.
And I'm like, really, honey? You can, I get the impression this Neptune place is full of scum and, no one is really, but I actually wanted to see her get together with the guy, African-American guy. Who's now a school teacher.
Yeah.
They seem to have some sort of a spark, and I was like, yeah, that would be better. But
that's what I always thought.
The whole Logan thing and Veronica thing, I
having watched the series, I would say that I think those two that you're mentioning would be a better fit. I want to talk about the state of detective TV, though, because I think there are good things about it and bad things about it. I think Veronica Mars, while being a strong character, does a lot of really stupid crap when it comes to investigating or getting the answers she needs. Did you find that to be the case in the film? She kind of walks herself.
Drew stuff.
She walks herself
Nancy
into
Drew stuff. It struck me as Nancy Drew stuff, but that she felt as though she could get away with anything because of her charm, and we see that happen a couple of times. So I'm assuming that happens a lot in the show.
Oh, yeah.
You
yeah,
know, and in the show, I'm assuming it was even easier for her to get out of things because not only probably did she have her charm, but also her youth,
yeah.
which helps as well. So, you know, it just seemed very formula to me. And you know what? It seems to me that you know, that's fine. The fans wanted the show. They raised the money for the show. They probably got what they wanted. Okay. It just didn't seem as though something that would be for anyone who didn't have that history.
Yeah, for me, the one thing that puts Veronica Mars mostly above the rest of crime television is that it's not as formulaic. You're not going to see who the culprit is a lot of the time, even though the characters are kind of cheeky and it's very easy for her to get away on charm. You don't really get that in other crime shows. It's somebody that people can relate to in some sort of odd way. You wouldn't want to be Veronica, but you'd want to be Veronica's friend. That's the whole charm of the entire show in a nutshell. You don't want to be Veronica, but you would want to be her friend. Because if you look at all the stuff she got up to in the television series, you'd know basically that she's one of those characters that if you stick by her,
well, she seems very faithful.
She'll be faithful to you.
I mean, she leaves this fiancé in New York to come back to her old drippy boyfriend.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, she's loyal to a fault, and that's what people are attracted to. That's what I can say I was attracted to when I first saw the series.
If it weren't for Kristen Bell,
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure. I think that.
So did she do well?
Yeah, you know, but I like her.
Okay.
And an actress with any less degree of charisma, I think,
Could
really
fail.
would have been a complete waste of $8 and you know, an hour 50 minutes of my time.
Okay. The last thing I want to talk with you about today is The Walking Dead, because I have we've said this over the last couple of weeks. We have a lot of problems with the show. This week in particular was bad for me because they kept jumping from group to group to group to group, and not only was I just bored with trying to keep up with everybody, but you put me with groups that I didn't care about. Last week we got this great thing where we got to know a little bit more about Beth, and Daryl finally, after shooting so many crossbow bolts at zombies, finally opened up. I thought that was the breakthrough, that, okay, we know a little bit more about who Daryl is as a person. That's great. But this episode, we just had all the characters getting into danger all the time. It was just really, really basic. You didn't get any sort of way to have any emotional reference. You got Bob and whatever the African-American chick's name is.
Okay, yeah.
Whatever her name is, with Maggie. They're having their own little tiff about where should we go? What should we be doing? Who should we be looking for? When it's pretty obvious that you need to be looking for a safe haven, or, you know, somewhere to stay where you're going to be away from the zombies, because you've been fighting for days. You don't have a lot of food. You probably have no food at this point. I mean, this show's just gone off the rails now. I mean, it's ridiculous. Chuck, what do you think?
I kind of like the fact, actually, that they were finally switching between groups, because it seemed to me that if you were, the past episodes in this season, if you're stuck with a group you weren't really interested in, it was a long hour.
Yeah.
It was a long hour, and I found myself, so I didn't mind the switching back and forth too much. But you're right, it does seem to be bogging, it's very repetitious. The show itself is repetitious. I mean, really, when you stop to think about it, I mean, with the killing of the zombies, we get this every week. And I think I liked the dynamic. I think the difference in this half season in the past is that we had more interesting characters dealing with one another. And many of those interesting characters are now dead or almost dead. I mean, Rick, I think, is incredibly interesting, but, you know, he's retreated so much to within himself that he might as well be gone.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got to get to this terminus place real fast. And I think what they're going to do is that this half season will end with everyone arriving there, and then we get the break, and that's really going to test my loyalty. Yeah. And I think a lot of other people's loyalty about whether to go back or not.
Do you think we'll get a character death, though?
I don't know.
Don't know, don't care?
No, I don't know.
I do have a show for you that I want to recommend after we're off the air, but I do think that The Walking Dead, if they get to terminus before the finale, which I don't think is going to happen, then we may get some interesting stuff that may keep us there for another half season. What I'm more excited about is Mad Men, but, you know, they've really got to bring the humanity back into this show because this show's been dead for a while in my eyes. So next week we'll be talking about the Veronica Mars movie. And I think also next week, doesn't Captain America or something come out?
No.
What's up next week?
Divergent.
Okay, we'll discuss Divergent, and I'll try not to fanboy too much out about Shailene Woodley. Okay, so until next time, I'm Chike Coleman of Sound On Sight. That's Chuck Koplinski of the News Gazette and the Illinois Times. We will see you next week.